Welcome to the Golf Improvement Podcast, episode 193.
Welcome to the podcast for golf lovers and enthusiasts who are looking to take their games to new heights. Dedicated to custom club fitting, short game improvement, and effective practice to improve your golf game. This is the Golf Improvement Podcast with your host, Tony Wright.
Hello, this is Tony Wright from Game Improvement Golf in Oak Ridge, Tennessee with the Golf Improvement Podcast, dedicated to sharing useful information on professional club fitting, short game improvement, and effective practice techniques. I create exceptional golf clubs. You shoot lower scores. A few weeks ago, I started seeing some new email posts from Bob Litwin about his experiences performing at the recent Senior Davis Cup tennis matches and the World Championships. Bob is the author of the best-selling book, Live the Best Story of Your Life, and has been on my podcast 2 previous times. I'm honored that you'll get to hear him share some of his amazing stories from his participation in the Senior Davis Cup matches and the World Championships, and how some of his experiences can help you play your best golf and experience your best life.
The Golf Improvement Podcast is sponsored by Tony Wright and Game Improvement Golf. Tony creates exceptional golf clubs. You shoot lower scores.
Hello, this is Tony Wright with episode 193 of the Golf Improvement Podcast. And welcome back, Bob Litwin. And who was the author of Live the Best Story of Your Life. And actually, Bob, I just started rereading it, and I got things out of it that I had forgotten from when I read it the first time. You have some amazing and valuable stories to share from your team win at the recent, I think it's the Senior Davis Cup matches, but also from participating in the World Tennis matches. And in reading your post, it really struck me that you kept saying over and over some words like "I've never ever done this," or "I've never ever realized this." And I think some of that comes from, maybe the intensity of the competition, but also the kind of stories you learn to tell yourself. So, can't wait to listen today, Bob. Welcome.
Well, thanks for having me back, Tony. It's always fun to get on with you, and you and I know that the fact that I'm tennis and you're golf doesn't mean that there aren't commonalities that cross over, as well as those that cross over into life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, what we learn about ourselves as athletes, competitors, teachers, as we are all three, they really help us live a really, really a good life. Excuse me, got a frog in my throat. Okay.
Yeah, well, we're fighting allergies here too. I don't know if that's what it is there, but it's kind of crazy this time of year.
Yeah. So, maybe I can just give a quick background about the events that I just played in that were really wonderful learning experiences for me. First of all, I'm in my last year of the 70 and over age group.
Oh boy.
We have renewed age groups every 5 years. So next year I go into the 75 and over. And I had a really a remarkable 70 and over run that included a full year of us not playing because of COVID. But during that time, I had probably one of the best runs of my tennis career. And I think of runs in terms of these 5-year increments, where in the 70 and over, in the first national tournament that I played, I lost in the semifinals. And then from that point until 3.5 years later, I didn't lose a match.
Wow.
And I didn't lose a set. And I actually, during that period, I was only behind once in 28 matches, 56 sets. And that was somebody served first and they won their game. That was the only time I was behind. And I'm not really, I don't consider myself a dominant player like that in terms of results, because there are quite a few players that, I lose to as well over the years. And there's at least 3 or 4 people in the age group who are competitive in the top 4 or 5, and I am one of them. I am not the it player by any means. But during this stretch I was. And during this time, my tennis came very easily to me. And I had some wonderful discoveries during that period where I was more and more letting go of results, which was one of my stories that I had written, that I'm free of results. I'm free of fear of losing and the need to win. And that was very helpful in me playing tennis free, which is a really nice way to play, and it tends to work a lot better than when you're not feeling free. So there was that. Plus, during this period of time, I had also gone from a traditional diet to a vegetarian diet to a vegan diet, which was really very helpful as well in terms of my fitness, my recovery, my stiffness. And at the same time, I had restarted to do transcendental meditation right at the beginning of COVID. And I basically have not missed a day since February of 2020. And I do it twice a day.
Yeah.
So there were a lot of things happening that were lining me up to be in a really good space for competing in tennis matches. So during this time, I made the Senior Davis Cup team 4 out of the 5 years. I didn't make it the first year because my record wasn't in the age group. So 2 of those years we didn't play because of COVID. We were supposed to go to Mallorca. But one thing that was happening was I was now the number 1 player on the team, selected on the team. And I had not been the number 1 singles player on the team generally. And even though I've played the cup matches about 13 or 14 times, I had never been the number 1 player that was able to say, well, I made a big difference in us winning the gold ball, the gold medal.
Yeah.
Winning it. The first time I was ever on a team, I was 50 years old. I was a doubles player I wasn't a doubles player. I was playing doubles on the team. But because our 2 singles players won their matches, both of them won every day, my match didn't count. And even though we won the cup, I never felt like I was a part of it. You have to win 2 out of 3 matches every day. And if the singles wins, you don't have to play the doubles. So anyway, here I was with an opportunity as the number 1 player in my last year in the age group to represent the country, playing against 20 other countries. For me to play the number 1 player, every match I play would be against the number 1 player from another country. And the opportunity to be the guy that leads the team. So even though the second singles player, his point is just as important and the doubles is just as important, I felt a lot of excitement. But unbeknownst to me, I also got something lodged in my brain that was creating some internal pressure for me, like the responsibility of being number 1 and that I have to win. I have to win. And I already had a story that I don't have to win, but that story dissipated as I started to feel this pressure. And I actually, during the ramp up, a month or 2 before, I wasn't playing well. And I kind of thought it was that I had COVID and that, I was just a little bit off, that I had maybe some ongoing, just like focusing issues, or physically I wasn't 100%. And I was not playing well. And I kept really, really working really hard on the court, playing a lot, working on different technical pieces of my game, working on my tactics, and just I was not in a good place. I really was not in a good place. And I had a lot of thoughts about telling the captain of the team that he should put me at number 2.
Wow. Huh.
And it's just not who I am. I've never felt that at all. I've always wanted to be the one. And I've never been afraid of going out there and putting it on the line. But I was having doubts. And I also was having doubts about entering in the World Championships, which happens one day after the Senior Cup matches end. That I just wasn't feeling quite right. And I had written my first journal a month before the tournament, and I wrote about my training and what I was doing. And during that month, I was just not, like I say, doing too well. And I was just on the court, and I realized that the person I was being on the court was like unrecognizable to me. I was complaining a lot. I was frustrated. I was like critical of myself. I was coming home from playing. Joanne would say, "How'd you do?" I said, "Oh, terrible. Played awful. Should have beaten the guy." I don't even usually talk about beating somebody in practice. And I realized as I sat down 1 week before leaving for the cup matches, I wrote my journal, and my journal was called A New Story. I realized that I needed to write a new story because the story that I was telling myself was really counterproductive. So I wrote my new story, and my new story was actually something that I had written over a period of time, and I had called it my tennis mission. And actually, if you don't mind me taking a moment.
Sure.
I want to bring it up my computer so I can share it. I should have thought of this before, but I didn't. And hang on one second. Okay. So I wrote this tennis mission over a period of like 10 or 15, maybe 20 years. And this is what it is. And it's what I read before I go out to play big events. I'm an extraordinary competitor who plays in competition at the high end of my skill and talent. I love the competition more than I love to win, and accept whatever the outcome is with dignity and class. I compete in the moment, avoiding past and future tripping. I compete for each point. I compete with effortless effort. I'm non-judgmental of myself. I enjoy myself. I'm enthusiastic. I'm forgiving of myself for my inability to achieve perfection. I see the perceived pressure moments as the sweetest moments. I play in a state of equanimity. And every match I play is an experience where I grow as a player and a person. So that is like my ultimate tennis story. The story of who I aspire to be when I walk on the court. And I may not be all of those ways all the time, but I'm certainly some of those ways some of the time, a lot of those ways a lot of the time. And every now and then, all of those ways for an entire tournament. I was very, very far away from that.
Yeah. Before you went there.
Yeah. So when I wrote this, with a week to go, when I walked on the court to practice, this was what I was focusing on. To love the competition and to compete in the moment and to play each point and to be effortless in my effort and to be non-judgmental. These were the things that I was being the opposite of. So I wrote this story, and sure enough, by the time I got to Florida for the tournament, my game was better. My game was much better. And it wasn't because I was focusing on my strokes or my strategy. I was focusing on finding Bob, the player who I am. So that is the lead up to playing these matches. And, this is an individual sport, just like golf. But when you watch these golfers, when they're playing Ryder Cup, it's like a whole different thing.
Oh, yeah.
They're on a team. They love it. They're supporting the guys that they usually want to beat. And they're cheering for each other. And this was the same thing in tennis. And the opportunity, again, to try to help the team win the cup and bring it back to the United States was huge. So we go out, we start playing, and we're highly favored to do well. And we're in the semifinals. And in the semifinals, our number 2 player had already won his match. So if I won my match, we advance to the finals. If I don't win my match, then we play doubles. Whoever wins the doubles will advance to the finals. So, I still needed to go out there and win this match so that we weren't in a situation of having to play doubles. And I'm kind of rolling along, and it's maybe about, I don't know, maybe 3-2 mine in the first set. And I run for a ball and I pull a groin muscle. I mean, like, I have to pull up. I have to stop. Like I'm running and I feel it and I just like, stop, don't move. And I'm like, I can't believe this, because a groin muscle for a tennis player is like very problematic. Not only does it interfere with your movement, but it's very easy to pull it again and make it worse, which can pretty much end your playing for a couple of weeks. So here I am, I'm there on the court, and I'm playing a guy from Italy, and the European players, as well as the South American players we played against, they're masters of the drop shot. And we're playing on these slow clay courts, and this guy is just drop shotting me like crazy. I lose 11 of the next 12 points. I can't run for the drop shot. I go to the side. We get to sit down every other game for a minute and a half. And one of my teammates says, we got to get you get you an injury timeout and get you with a trainer. So the referee said, yeah, you can have an injury timeout. You get 3 minutes. So I had 3 minutes with the trainer. Trainer is like rubbing me out, stretching me, apply some stuff to it. I take a Tylenol, whatever. I go back on the court. I still can't really run well, but I get very, very dialed in. And I managed to come back and I win the match. And if it had not been the cup match, I probably would have retired in the match. I wouldn't have played for the fear of risking further injury. So the first thing you were referring to was like, I had never really done this before, where I decided I have to do this. I have to play injured. I have to find the way with an injury to win this match. And I adapted my game. And adaptability is one of my stories as well. And I basically decided that, knowing the statistics of tennis, where in most matches we win probably 55 to 60% of the points, even in matches where it's 6-2, 6-1, you don't win all the points. Well, knowing that I was going to be losing 40% of the points anyhow, I figured the points that I lose, let them be the drop shots that they hit.
Yeah.
Let them be the shots that are out in the corners that I'm not covering well. And let me just deal with the middle 80% of the court where I can get to the ball. And let me make sure I'm giving nothing away. And it was remarkable because I played really, really good tennis, even though I was losing a lot of points where I couldn't get to the ball. But I still won a higher percentage of points by just playing way more within myself, not using my speed, which may be my greatest asset as a player, maybe one of my great assets as a player. The next day, so now we're into the finals. But Bob has got a groin pull. So we have a team meeting about what to do. We didn't want to really change the lineup and move our number 2 player to number 1, because if we were to split the singles, I hope this isn't too much detail, but it's
no, it's great. I mean, it's actually what I was hoping you'd talk about, because it was, to me, it was like that your stories pulled you through sort of crises in a way. Not really crises, but maybe that's not the right word. I don't know.
Trouble.
Trouble. Yeah, right. Things that that were off the beaten path a little bit, right?
Right. Things that I had not really experienced.
Yeah.
So we have a team meeting. We don't want to change the lineup, because if we had put our number 2 player at number 1, the number 1 player plays the second match in order. And the doubles is played immediately after the number 1 singles player plays. So it's challenging physically to have no break after playing a number 1 player in the world, a top player in the world, to have to go out and then play doubles. And we probably, if we had split the singles, would have needed our guy to play doubles because he was a better player than one of the doubles players. So it was decided that we were going to keep the lineup the same, that I would go out and play. And instead of being concerned about winning, I was going to do whatever I could to keep my opposing number one player on the court as long as possible. To just try and stretch out the match, just like don't look to end the point. Look to stretch the point out, even though that would be difficult for me. If I didn't have the pressure of having to win, I probably could have played a much more defensive, safe match. So that was the plan. The next day rolls around. I'm sitting up on the patio while the number two player is playing, and he's certainly favored to win the match. And one of my teammates comes up to me and says, "Get ready, you're going on in about 10 minutes." I said, "Oh, did Dave win that quick?" He says, "Dave is losing 6-2, 5-1. And I'm like, "You got to be kidding me." I said, you mean I have to go out, I got to win this match or we're out. We're done. So I end up not even really getting to do my rituals, whatever they are, like the stretches I usually do and eating something. It's because his match ended so quickly. So one thing that was cool was I realized took a new look at rituals, and I was like, rituals are too much of a prison. They make you too nervous sometimes if you don't get to do them. I'm an athlete. I can go out and play at any moment. So I go out there with the same strategy of I'm not going to worry about the 3 feet on the sidelines. Let the guy drop shot me. Let him win all those points. He still has to win a lot more points to win the match. I go out. I'm very dialed in. I just knew that I just needed to be as focused as I could possibly be, or more focused than I've ever been. And shockingly, I beat the number one player from Austria 6-2, 6-love.
Jeez.
I mean, 6-2 set was very close. Once I won that set 6-2, the guy just completely went away. He just couldn't, he was so shocked because everybody knew that I was hurt. Everybody in the tournament knew that I was playing hurt, and they were going to take advantage of it. So that was the second thing that I had never done, which is to actually help win the cup by winning the final match. And it was just remarkable, and I cried. I mean, it was just special.
And now, I think you set this all up at the start by having a better story than the grumpy old guy or the grumpy guy. I'm about the same age as you. I'm almost 73. But, that realizing that one wasn't going to make it. I mean, if that story had been in place when you had all these challenges, it would have been much more difficult.
I would have lost the first match. Forget about the semifinals. I mean, the guys I was playing were really, really fine players. And if I'm not playing near my best, I mean, I'm in trouble. You can't go to these and be playing at 75% of your best. Everybody's ready. Everybody's trained hard. And look, anything can happen in a match. But no, those stories really, they changed everything for me. And the funny thing is, people think that I don't have any bad stories just because I'm the story coach. But sometimes I don't realize it. And I didn't really realize it because I kept searching for answers in the wrong direction, which was, it's my game that's off, not me that's off. But I will say something for your listeners about when I realize that I have a bad story. The time it takes between when I realize I have a bad story and when I write a new story is seconds. Because for me to know I have a bad story and to not do the work of just quickly writing a better story, I'm basically saying I'm okay with this bad story. And by me writing the new story, it's not where I am in that moment, But by having the new story, I get on the path of moving towards it. Clearly, start moving towards it. I start catching myself.
Yeah.
Like when I'm drifting back into the old story. Like, oh, I'm being critical. No, I'm non-judgmental. I'm like forgiving of myself. Those are my new stories. And they come to me as I have written these stories.
But some of that is because you're able to listen to yourself very well because of having done this so much too. I mean, so many people keep the same story over and over and tell the same story over and over and over and over and over and over.
Yeah.
And then are surprised that they don't get better results, right?
Well, they're usually not that surprised.
Yeah, right. I guess that's true.
Comfortable with that's the way I am. That's like I've always been like this, and it's like, but I think there's great value. I write a lot. I mean, I don't write lots of books. I wrote one book, but I write notes to myself a lot. When something is off in my game, whether it's tennis or my coaching business or in my relationship or being a grandfather or a friend, whatever it is, in my diet, my exercise, if there's something off, to me, I see that as an opportunity to rewrite what's going on into what I aspire to be, or who I aspire to be, and what I aspire to start happening in my life.
Yeah.
So I think that there's a lot of value in it. If you don't have somebody who's a full-time coach that you're talking to, who you're basically bouncing things off of, you bounce things off yourself, and you can't just do it in your mind, because our mind is very good at moving away from the things that we're not happy about. Just kind of like, whatever, it'll change. Whereas if you write it, it becomes almost like somebody else's story. And we are really good at helping other people with their stories. It's like, well, why don't you do this?
Oh, yeah. We're the experts, right? Yeah,
no,
right.
Don't tell me. I know. Well, so I'm writing the story for myself so that I know what I need to do.
Yeah. So now you've won, you've got excited, everything is great. I mean, really an amazingly euphoric time, right? And then you move almost immediately into the World Championships.
1 day off.
Yeah.
1 day off. Then, and you have now probably another, at least in our draw, 50 or 60 players who are showing up who are fresh.
Yeah.
They're there. It's day one for them. They've been practicing and getting ready, and now it's day one, and they're like ready to go. Myself and my teammates who were playing in the World Championships, we're already a little bit tired from the playing the cup matches for a week. So, in one way we have an advantage because we're much more mentally in the game, but we have the disadvantage of our fitness. We've used our bodies a bunch. So because I was euphoric, the day before the Worlds, I wasn't feeling as excited as I usually am before playing the World Championships or any tournament, where I'm like, I'm really pumped. I can't wait to get there. It's like, no, I'm there, and I feel so great about what we did, and now I'm looking at this other mountain in front of me, and I go to these tournaments, Tony, and like, I don't just show up. I want to do very well, and I mean, everybody wants to do very well, but like my record is such that I do well, so my bar is high, and plus I had this groin pull that was still there. I still was not really able to run full out, and I was protective to not make it worse. And I was really ambivalent about playing in the World Championships, and I was really considering not doing it. And I had never done that, pulled out of a tournament before, just, no, I don't want to do it. So Joanne encouraged me to play the first round, which I did. It was a pretty easy match. I wasn't really forced to run really hard. And second match, I played well. I played a guy from Argentina, and good guy, good player, but he wasn't really able to hurt me very much. The third day, I played a guy from Japan who had a great win against a guy that was going to be a problem for me, I'm sure. I start playing this guy, and he's playing really great. He's unflappable, and does not. Maybe he knows my history and record, but I don't think he does, because you always hope that somebody knows they're supposed to lose to you.
Right.
Or something that they're worried. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, I got to play this guy. He's won a lot. No, he just came out there, wasn't missing balls. But I managed to get through that match, and then I was in the quarterfinals, and here I was ambivalent about playing, and I was kind of like very neutral going on the court, just taking each day as it came, as it was coming. And I played the guy from Austria who had beaten our number 2 player so badly. And he was playing really great tennis. And I played a very close first set where I was down, and I came back, and the details aren't that important, but I came back and won that set. And then I went on a run to go up 5-1 in the second set. At 5-1, I kind of got ahead of myself, like, oh my God, I'm going to be in the semifinals. And I played not a good game, and I'm about to serve. It's his game point, 30-40, lightning and thunder. The horn goes off, everybody off the courts. And I could have played the point. I could have played that next point. But I didn't think I was like really in a favorable position within that game. So we stopped. We waited an hour. We got back on the court after it rained. Now the courts were much different. They were wet. They were slow. I'm still serving it ad out. And, it's a big moment because I lose that game 5-2. He gets up and serves. Maybe he wins that game. Now I'm serving 5-4 or whatever. It's like it changes really quickly.
Yeah.
So, during the break, I didn't know if we were coming back the next day, but we had to wait. And as they sent us out, we got to warm up for like a minute, including our serves. And I'm thinking, where am I going to serve? That's like, everybody expects me to serve to the backhand. This guy's probably looking for the backhand. I don't like serving to the forehand. It's a tougher serve for me to make. But I serve to the forehand. I win the point. I win 2 more points. Boom, out of there. Game over. It was like I managed to escape with a victory, even though I was up 5-1, and it seemed like it would be easy. So that was it. I played the semifinals the next day. I played a really fine player from the Netherlands, a guy who had been a tour player in his day and played regular Davis Cup, and he beat me, and it was an incredibly rewarding World Championship, because to take third place in the World Championships is not something that I poo-poo, believe me.
Yeah.
It was a really wonderful effort on my part, and I was really pleased. And people was like, "Oh, Bob, you had another chance at another World Championship," and I'm like, "No, this was great. I don't need to win. I prefer to win, but like I need to just be myself out there," and I was myself, and it was great. So, and then as you and I were talking before we got on, it's like I learned a lot. I learned a lot during these 2 weeks. I learned a lot about who I am that I didn't really know and have sort of taken for granted, because there were a lot of people there that knew me. Being from the East Coast, I knew a lot of people down in the Boca area. People watched me play, and they were saying things to me like, you just never go away in these matches. When you're losing, it doesn't look like you're losing. It looks like you're just really, really in the point. And you never quit. You never shrug your shoulders. You never get... And I'm hearing these things, and I kind of knew these things about myself, but I never had enough distance, really. I mean, people never really said this to me. So I was getting some really external view from a distance. Kind of like if somebody had written a book about me, or if somebody had written an article about me and talked about the way in which I was in there watching me play. And it was really, it was interesting, because I had so much taken for granted that I just go out there and I play, and I just try and do my best, and I try and have a good attitude, and yeah, I guess I do that. But it made me feel good to know that I am these ways that people are perceiving. I know it now. So that makes me stronger. It's more that I can lean on.
Yeah.
The other thing that I learned that I have some sort of embarrassing feeling about, but not really. I always, when I was younger and into my adult years, I was dealing with somewhat low self-esteem issues. And it drove me a lot to try really hard to be seen, to do well as a way to be seen. And when I played basketball in high school, I played so hard because I wanted my coach to say to me, "You're good." The fact that I was a starter on a good team wasn't enough for me to know I was good. I needed people to tell me I was good. And even into my adulthood, when I started playing tournaments at 35, I would call up certain people after I'd win a match. I'd say, "Oh, I played this guy. I was losing and then I won," because I wanted them to think I was good. And to then say, "Oh, yeah, you're really a good player." And it was really like a nasty feeling. It really was. It felt awful that I was asking for people basically to say what I didn't know about myself. I didn't own myself, that I was a good player. And I didn't like that part of me. And during this tournament, a lot of people said a lot of nice things about me, to me. The other players, the people watching, my teammates. And I liked hearing it. And I realized I don't have low self-esteem anymore. It's okay that I like that people say nice things to me about my game. It's not some desperation. And that I always thought it was a character flaw. And that just me getting to a place in my life where it's like I can appreciate and accept somebody saying nice things to me without it being like, I hope they say something nice to me about me. I hope they see what I am. It was a very freeing thing. It just felt like a nice new piece of my life that I don't judge myself for liking that people think I'm good.
Yeah.
I mean, it's obvious, to some people, but, here I am at 74 and still learning really meaningful things. And, I have like another bunch of decades of learning new things.
I think learning is just one, for me, it's just one of the most fun things to continue to do. I'm not sure I could ever feel happy personally if I wasn't learning something. So,
yeah,
and learning from you and doing these episodes and all the people I get to talk to is, it's a real ball. And I get, and it's fun when people tell you that, I enjoy your podcast, but the fun is that people learn something from them, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not that you go out and say, "Hey, do you like my podcast?"
Yeah, right.
That's what I was doing. "You like my podcast?" No, it wasn't a podcast, but like, "You think I'm any good?" And people would say to me, it's like, "How could you have not known? Like, you were a very successful tennis teaching pro, and you were like you were number one in the world in tennis playing, and you changed your career to being a Wall Street coach, and you had these jobs that are really amazing jobs. How could you have not known you were good?" I said, "I don't know. I got to go back and ask my mother, I guess."
Oh boy, there we go with that, right?
Desire to help me be better. She would tell me I wasn't very good, not directly, but like, "You could do better. You could do better. You could do better."
Yeah.
I was hearing as, "I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough." I don't blame her for it. Just was one of those things.
Well, what are a few things at the end then here? Obviously journaling and listening, and, one of the things I heard too is it's maybe not always like that you don't swing a golf club well or blah, 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 but just your attitude and thought about yourself that affects how you perform and how you respond to things that happen.
Tony, I think that one of the big takeaways for me, that when I went back, started talking to my clients, it came out. I said, I just think that it's much more difficult to be rock solid in the game that we are playing, whether it's golf or tennis or investing or doing podcasts. It's much more difficult to really put up like a nearly perfect game than it is to win the mental game. Because the games that we're playing, the sports or our careers, they do have a moving target. On Wall Street, it's the market. You can do everything right, but the market makes a left turn rather than a right turn. You can do everything right in golf, and there can be a gust of wind or a branch that's in the way. You could have had the right club, the right stance, the right swing, the right tempo, and your ball goes off 20 yards to the right for some reason. Or you could hit the perfect shot to the green, but the green has got a lot of faster roll today, and now you're 10 feet off the green. Those things are always there in the things that we're doing, sort of like the thing that we can't control. But it's not that difficult to play a great mental game because you don't have an opponent.
Yeah.
Opponent is yourself. And as the great samurai warriors would say, when I am on the mat, I have two opponents, the one that I'm facing and the one inside me. If I defeat the one inside me, I usually defeat the one facing me. If I don't defeat the enemy inside me or my opponent inside me, I have very little chance of winning. And I felt for me in these couple of tournaments that I really defeated the opponent inside me that at first had doubt and then was questioning whether I could do it with an injury. I was able to use the skills that I've developed over the years to quiet that voice, my internal opponent. And it was just me. And so, I've been saying to people do the best you can in order to put on a good position on Wall Street or to hit the right shot on the golf course or whatever it is that you're doing. But you can really win at the mental game, certainly if you know about it and you know that whining and complaining and negativity and beating yourself up and being frustrated, those things are not helpful at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
Those are easier things to train than the physical aspects of what we're doing.
Yeah.
I think.
That is a beautiful way to end today.
Okay.
I think that perspective, I'm not sure I ever thought about it and appreciated it as much as the way you put it. So, yeah.
All right. Well, great. Tony, thanks again for letting me go on my verbal riff. I hope your listeners will take something away. Maybe they can each write a golf mission, and their golf mission shouldn't say anything about actually their physical game. It should be their mental game, and that they make good decisions about taking on the mental game.
Yeah. Bob, thanks again. And as usual, I'll put a link in the show notes to your book again. And anybody that already has it, guess what? If you read it again, you'll get something new out of it. And that'll help you. Bob, thanks for taking the time today. It was wonderful, as usual.
Sure, Tony. Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure.
All right. Bye now.
Bye-bye.
Tony Wright and Game Improvement Golf, changing golfers' lives, one golfer at a time.
Thanks, Bob, for being on my show again. I love the way you summed up our interview at the end. Maybe creating a great mental game is easier than hitting great drives. To find out more about Bob Litwin, I put a link in the show notes to his website, where you can also sign up to receive his periodic and inspiring email newsletter posts. And I also put a link in the show notes to where you can buy his book. As I noted, I'm reading it again and getting valuable insights from it. My shout out today, well, many of you know I continue to have left heel issues that have kept me from being able to walk to play golf. Listening to my orthopedic physician assistant's son, David, I went to the Knoxville Orthopedic Clinic and started some pretty amazing physical therapy with him for, of all things, my Achilles tendon, rather than the heel spur that I have. So far, I'm not totally healed, but making great progress. The moral is, find the experts when you have problems. A reminder that there's a support game improvement golf link in the show notes for this podcast, and if you can provide some support, that will be greatly appreciated. Contributions are continuing to help me move toward my $4,000 goal for upgrading my website and podcasting computer. Thanks. Well, that's it for today. In 2 weeks, episode 194 is well into the planning stages. Until then, take care, God bless Ukraine, and God bless America.
Game Improvement Golf, your source of information and inspiration to become an exceptional golfer now. www.gameimprovementgolf.com